25/8 is in the business of time. We help leaders of small and medium-sized businesses work smarter, not harder, so they feel like they have an extra hour in the day and day in the week. Go from don't know what I don't know to I can't miss this show, as we talk proven strategies, practical tips and insider insights from a diverse range of industry leaders. Make time to grow your capabilities and confidence with 25/8. Entrepreneurship isn't for everyone. Don't get me wrong, I am small business's biggest cheerleader and will get behind you if you want to make something work. But I think it's necessary to understand what you're in for so that you can enjoy the ride. Have you got what it takes? Welcome to this episode of Make Time, where I'll share global and Australian research and patterns that characterise successful entrepreneurship and how that translates for you on your business journey. I'm your host, Sam, and I'm passionate about helping you and your business thrive by working smarter, not harder. And thank you for joining me for this episode. Global data from the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor shows that around 1 in 8 working age adults worldwide is engaged in starting or running a business. That equates to roughly 665 million people globally, which is a large number in absolute terms, but is still quite clearly a minority of the workforce. In most countries, the majority of people are employees. Some are contractors, some move in and out of the workforce altogether. Essentially, entrepreneurship isn't a default path, and that matters because it shapes how entrepreneurship feels, how it's experienced, and why it can be both deeply empowering and quietly isolating, and not for everyone. Across countries and income levels, entrepreneurship tends to cluster in a fairly narrow band. Globally, about 12 to 13% of working age adults are entrepreneurs. In high-income countries like the United States, that figure rises close to 1 in 5 adults. In many lower-income countries, rates are higher again, often 20 to 30%, driven in part by necessity entrepreneurship, where formal employment is scarce. Australia sits somewhere in the middle. As of mid-2025, there are approximately 2.73 million actively trading businesses. In a population of between 26 to 27 million, that implies around 10 to 12% of residents are business owners, higher if you focus only on working age adults. Even in a country with a strong small business culture, most people are not entrepreneurs, which means that when you choose this path or feel pushed towards it, you are by definition stepping into a space that most people around you don't occupy. So why do we become entrepreneurs in the first place? The data consistently shows that people don't become entrepreneurs because they're reckless or fearless or wildly different from anyone else. They tend to do it for one of two reasons. The first one is opportunity. In higher income economies, most entrepreneurs are opportunity driven. They want autonomy. They see a gap in the market. They're constrained by existing systems. They want to shape how work is done, not just perform tasks within it. This is common among technical specialists, creatives, experienced professionals, people in mid-career who have accumulated skills and networks. Globally, entrepreneurship peaks in the 25 to 55 age range, with Gen Z currently owning the largest share of established small businesses in countries like the US and Australia. Most Australian firms are very small. Non-employing solo businesses are the largest group and grew 4.3% in 2024 to 2025, while businesses with 1 to 4 and 20 to 199 employees slightly declined, underlying a strong solo freelance micro business culture here. Younger generations are now driving many new ventures. Recent CommBank data shows that millennials account for about 49% of new business accounts and Gen Z for 13%, meaning people under about 40 start around 62% of new businesses in the last year. Urban hubs, especially CBDs, are strong entrepreneurial hotspots. For example, Melbourne CBD with the postcode of 3000 was the fastest growing area for new businesses in the year to September 2025, followed by Sydney CBD and a fast growing logistics corridor in Melbourne's west. Professional and knowledge-intensive services like legal, accounting and consulting, construction and road, freight, logistics stand out among Australia's fastest-growing small business sectors, especially in major cities and growth corridors. In other contexts, entrepreneurship is driven by necessity. There's a lack of suitable employment. People need flexibility, perhaps to care for a loved one or because they can't work under normal conditions, or an unstable labour market, the need to generate income quickly. Entrepreneurs in higher income economies tend to be relatively well educated, often with tertiary qualifications, particularly in growth sectors such as tech and professional services, while in lower income countries, many business owners operate with less formal education in micro retail and informal services. These businesses are more likely to be small, informal, and undercapitalized, and globally they tend to have lower survival rates and growth rates. This distinction matters because why someone enters entrepreneurship strongly shapes how well they're positioned to survive it. Entrepreneurship takes courage. One of the more revealing patterns the data supports is that people rarely choose entrepreneurship because it's easy. They choose it because staying put where they are no longer feels viable. The trade-offs have shifted, or the cost of not acting feels higher than the risk of acting, which takes courage. Sometimes it takes necessity. Oftentimes it takes both. And once you step onto that path, you discover something else. The data doesn't always show that clearly, how isolating it can be too. Entrepreneurship feels isolating because fewer of your peers truly understand the decisions you have to make on a daily basis. We have delayed validation, invisible pressure, responsibility that can't be shared easily. Most people around you don't carry financial risk personally. They don't sit with uncertainty daily. They don't feel the emotional weight of decisions cascading through a business. And it's one of the reasons why access to peers and mentors and structured support repeatedly shows up in the data as a success factor. Survival isn't random, but it is forgiving. Globally, a significant share of small businesses fail within a decade, but survival odds and success are strongly shaped by industry, financial management, and founder traits. Patterns in Australia are similar to other advanced economies, with slightly better survival in some traditional sectors and strong benefits from digital capability. The international data shows that approximately 70 to 80% of businesses survive their first year. 50% survive their first 5 years, and only a third, 30 to 35%, survive 10 years. These figures vary by country and sector, but the pattern of a steep drop-off in the first 5 years is relatively consistent across the world. Profitability is a separate question from survival. Recent surveys indicate that around 60 to 65% of small businesses globally report being profitable at a point in time, while a sizable minority are breaking even or losing money. These figures aren't meant to discourage you, rather they're just meant to ground expectations and ignite a drive for you to make your business work, because it takes drive. From our experience, a steep drop-off in the first 5 years isn't because people lack passion or intelligence. It's because pressure meets gaps in your capability and your drive. Multiple meta-analyses and compilations indicate the same top causes of failure. The first one is cash flow and capital. Around 80% of failed businesses cite cash flow problems as a key factor. Running out of cash or not understanding how quickly it moves remains the single biggest risk. One data set puts running out of cash or failing to raise new capital at about 38% of failures. The second is market fit, positioning and demand. Roughly 1/3 of failures trace back to weak demand or an unclear value proposition, poor marketing. In other words, building something without enough people willing to pay for it. or the people willing to pay for it not understanding what it is that you do or being able to find you. One compilation estimates 35% fail due to no market need and around 14 to 17% because of missing or flawed business models and marketing. The third and final top cause is execution under stress. Operational efficiencies, pricing errors, and reactive decision-making tend to compound financial pressure rather than cause failure on their own. Other contributors included poor team dynamics and competitive pressure. What's being highlighted here isn't a flaw in someone's character because of who they are. It's because of what they know and can do. These are skills, business skills. When we look at survival and success, there is nothing that guarantees success necessarily, but research and entrepreneur data sets highlight certain characteristics among surviving and growing business. When we look at age, entrepreneurship peaks in mid-career. Across many countries, the highest prevalence is often in the 25 to 44 or 25 to 54 range, when people have accumulated skills and networks but still have a bit of an appetite for risk. When we look at experience, the data shows that first-time small business owners have success rates in the teens, around 18%, while those who previously built a successful business have success rates closer to 30% on new ventures. This suggests accumulated experience and possibly capital and networks matter more than youth alone. People who had previously failed also performed slightly better, around 20% success rate, than first-timers, implying that learning from failure can improve odds even if the uplift is modest. Those with deep industry experience, like technical experts starting a niche services firm, tend to show a higher survival rate than those entering a sector cold. Industry-specific studies highlight that service-based businesses are more than twice as likely to survive as product-based in some markets, partly because of lower capital intensity and more flexible adaptation. If we look at gender, ethnicity and location shape access to finance, networks and markets, which indirectly affects success. Women-owned businesses often start with less capital and in lower margin sectors when controlling for funding and sector performance gaps narrow, suggesting that structural barriers rather than intrinsic capability explain much of the difference. Men remain more likely, though, than women to start businesses in most countries, though hundreds of millions of women globally are entrepreneurs, and the gender gap is narrowing in some regions through targeted finance and support. Hopefully, we see that continue to increase. If we look at geography, businesses in dense ecosystems like major cities, strong tech or industrial clusters tend to have better access to suppliers, customers, talent and capital, which correlates with higher survival and growth rates than in more isolated environments. Really important then when we think about supporting our regional business. For education and skills, as we've learned, even those who previously failed do slightly better the second time. This difference isn't necessarily in confidence, it's in how they interpret setbacks. Carol Dweck's research on growth mindset and learning orientation is useful to consider here. Successful owners are more likely to treat setbacks as information rather than final failure, iterating on products, markets, and processes. This ties to the high success rates of repeat founders versus first-timers. As we like to say, first attempt at learning. And as Thomas Edison stated, he didn't fail 1,000 times, he created a successful product that followed 1,000 steps. Risk management or not risk-taking is another factor here. Successful entrepreneurs don't simply tolerate risk, they manage it. Staged investments or testing before scaling, they protect cash and contingency plan, build buffers. Those things often avoid catastrophic cash flow crises that may sink other businesses. Businesses that systematically gather customer feedback, test offers and value propositions, and invest in marketing show significantly higher survival rates. One review noted that businesses investing deliberately in marketing roughly double their chances of survival compared with those that don't. Given how dominant cash flow issues are in failure data, business owners who build even basic financial literacy dramatically improve their odds. Keeping close track of cash, margins, and unit economics is a recurring success factor. With around 80% of failures tied to cash flow issues, owners who build this financial literacy and forecasting habits stand out. And then openness to technology. Surveys indicate that about 85% of small business owners who actively integrate technology like automation, digital tools, AI, report better performance. Those willing to adopt digital tools early tend to grow revenue faster and weather shocks more effectively. Technology doesn't replace judgment here, it increases your leverage. So what is the Australian small business success pattern? What we can see is that it's small, capable, and under pressure. We know that it's made up of millions of non-employing and employing 1 to 4 employees. Our survival rates by cohort typically show a very similar pattern to other advanced economies, relatively high survival after 1 year, but dropping materially by year 5 and beyond, with substantial variation by industry. We've got high business creation, but high churn. Agriculture, forestry, and related sectors are often cited as having comparatively high survival over the first decade. Technology startups and highly competitive online businesses show higher failure, but higher upside. The data shows that construction, professional services, healthcare, and some personal services host many of our small businesses, while highly discretionary retail and hospitality see more of the churn. So success for us in Australia is concentrated in professional services, construction, healthcare, and logistics. But there's greater pressure from high costs, skill shortages, and productivity constraints. Those profitable and growing SMEs tend to focus on productivity like systems, technology, process improvement over rapid headcount growth, which aligns with global finance too, and that digital adoption and operational efficiency underpin resilience, as well as digital capability, productivity gains, and using support ecosystems like mentors, coaches, advisors, grants, business support programs, and peer networks. Successful Australian SMEs often sit in services with strong recurring demand. Think they're professional services, construction, healthcare, logistics, or differentiated consumer niches like specialist retail, food, digital products, rather than highly commoditized offerings. So what about the psychological traits? Well, many psychological traits echo global patterns here in Australia too. There are a few contextual elements that stand out. Startup and SME surveys conducted in Australia show a strong role for networks, advisors, support programs, and grants. Roughly a third of those surveyed report using government programs, and a significant share lean on professional and peer networks for finance and strategy, which correlates with more structured planning and higher resilience. Business owners who embrace and invest in digital capability, like online sales, cloud systems, and explore interstate or export markets often outperform domestic-only peers, particularly in knowledge-intensive services and niche manufacturing. As in many countries, Australian business owners who have prior industry experience and some management or corporate background before launching appear more likely to build sustainable firms than those with no sector history, though younger cohorts like millennials and Gen Z are increasingly active, especially in digital first and service businesses. So what we can learn from some of this data is that entrepreneurship is not for everyone. It requires courage, pressure, or both, is structurally isolating, is skill intensive, not just effort intensive. And yet, for those who choose entrepreneurship, outcomes are not fixed. The odds can be tilted, Not by hustle, although you do need drive, not by personality, although you will need to be self-aware, but by access to education focused on skill building, not just knowledge sharing, so you are able to make confident decisions, coaching to help you overcome your barriers, mental, physical, financial, mentoring to inspire you to believe what's possible, to understand, to maybe push you a little bit further in technology or expansion into different markets, and the community to build connections, that network, but also the support to know that you're not isolated and you can learn from others, and do that across states and territories at moments that matter, so that you know you're not alone, even if you're a very small business. Entrepreneurship doesn't have to mean scaling endlessly, employing large teams, or chasing someone else's version of growth. For many, success looks like stability, autonomy, meaningful work, and a business that you design. What we want to ensure, though, that you're still in business so that it's sustainable. Of course, it can equally mean building a national or international business, or be a local specialized retailer. Whatever business means to you, what we want to ensure it is enduring, make running it intentional, focused and profitable. Build your skills, build your support network, and use technology as an enabler. Entrepreneurship isn't necessarily a badge of honor, it's a responsibility. So when I ask, have you got what it takes? I'm not asking you to say, am I cut out for this? I'm asking you to ask yourself, do I have the skills, support and space to make this sustainable on my terms? When those conditions are in place, entrepreneurship stops being a lonely gamble and becomes a designed pathway where you really can enjoy the journey. And that's where the real work begins. Thanks for listening to Make Time, a business podcast by 25/8. If you like the show, please take a moment to write a review and feedback on what you'd like to hear next. If you never want to miss an episode, hit subscribe or follow on your favourite listening channel. If you want to get even smarter, join our newsletter, community, or take one of our programs. Links down below. See you next time.